Today we're going to be looking at the Apimaye Pro Frame. This is a plastic frame that will accept plastic foundation as well as wax foundation. Now in a previous video I said that you had to use wax foundation when you're using an Apimaye Pro Frame. But the Pro Frames have been updated to accept plastic foundation as well. And you can see this has a Manlake black plastic foundation already inserted into it. Now I'll show you in the user manual. I have the old user manual where they specified that you must use wax foundation, but that user manual has been updated now, and the new user manual specifies that you can use wax or plastic foundation. All you need to do is add either plastic or wax foundation for your bees. So this is an update that Apimaye has made, and I think it's a great improvement to their frames. Now let's take a look at the frames. The frames are made out of two pieces of plastic that are joined together by pegs that hold them together from one side to the other. These pegs are internal, so you can't see them from the outside. The ends of the frames are recessed to prevent propolis buildup and to make it easier to remove the frame from the hive. Now you'll notice that unlike a lot of plastic frames, these don't have indentions along the sides, where that's a good place for hive beetles to hide, and you don't really want those on your frames. So this is an improved frame made out of plastic. The other thing I like about it is that if you do get wax moths in your hive, they're not going to destroy the frames like they would with a wooden frame where they burrow into the wood. On the plastic frames, they're not going to be able to do that. Now, taking these frames apart is a little tricky, so I'm going to go over that with you, and then I'll go over how to insert a plastic foundation and also how to insert a wax foundation into the Pro Frame. Now, when you are ready to take the frame apart, you're going to want to put it on a level surface to work with it, because it is, the first few times you work with it, it is kind of tricky to get apart. And if you don't have a surface to rest it on, gravity will inevitably pull the last part of the frame away, and you'll end up bending or breaking one of the pegs. Now, I'm going to use a hive tool to separate the frames. And you can use a screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, or a hive tool works well. So to separate the frames, you'll begin by prying them apart. You can use your fingers at first to get a little bit of a gap started. And then once you have a gap between the frames, you'll want to use a hive tool or a flat blade screwdriver. Start at one end and go to the other. I found that it's easiest to pry apart the bottom bar section first. This seems to come apart a little easier than the top bar section. Now, one thing you do not want to do, and they specify this in the instructions, is you don't want to open this up like a book. It'll actually break the pegs. You want to open it up keeping the upper half of the frame parallel to the bottom half of the frame, so it'll lift up directly. Alright, so we've got the bottom part separated now for the sides. And once you've opened up that bottom portion, you can work your way up the side. And the pegs at the top seem to be the hardest to separate. So you'll work your hive tool in to the frame and then separate the top pegs and lift this portion parallel to the bottom portion. So when you've separated the frame, you're now ready to insert your plastic foundation or wax foundation. I'm going to show you how to insert the plastic foundation first. So here we have a sheet of Manlake plastic foundation. You can order these directly from Apimaye with your hive. They'll send you 7, which is the right amount for a 7-frame nuke. And all you do is set the foundation into place You can wiggle it up and down a little bit, and it's just the right size so that it will fit into the frame and have not much wiggle room to it. But you can see that it sits flush into the frame. If you're having a tough time with it, you may have the wrong size foundation, or it may be twisted or something. It should lay flat into the frame without any problems at all. Now, to put the top portion of the frame back on, we set it gently onto the pegs. And when I'm speaking of the pegs, I'm talking about these little plastic pegs that go all the way around the frame. Now, they're easy to break if you mishandle the frame, especially while it's separated. So you want to be careful with it. The plastic pegs are essential to keeping the two portions of the frame together to make one solid frame for the bees to work. All right. You can see the top bar pegs are thicker and larger than the bottom and side pegs. All right, so once again, you place it on parallel to the bottom portion of the frame, and you begin pressing the frame together. And those pegs just slide right into place. And there you have one frame with plastic foundation. And this is waxed plastic foundation. You need to make sure it's waxed so that your bees can work it. Now let's take a look at inserting a wax foundation. This is a sheet of medium brood foundation from Man Lake. It's deep foundation, so it fits right into the deep frame. Now they say that when you insert this wax foundation, you want to actually press it into the frame. And you can see it overlaps the edges of the frame just a little bit. So once you are satisfied that you have it in place the way you want it, you can start pressing that wax in to the frame, against the frame. Both the top and the bottom. Then set your top half of the frame in place. And gently squeeze together the two halves of the frame. And that will lock your wax foundation into place. So now your foundation is ready to go into the Apimaye hive. So now your Pro frames are ready to go into your Apimaye Hive. You just remove one of the feeders and slide in your Pro frame. There's one. There's the plastic foundation. And you're ready to go.